because these are the things that I had kind of combined that all came together. And if I could go back and someone just wrote these like bullet points down for me, it would give me some semblance of, hey, as long as you do these 4 things, they don't have to be perfect, but if you just don't miss these 4, then the odds of you closing is going to significantly go up because at least you have these 4 little bullet points down.
All right, hello everybody. Grady Polson here, Family First Life America. Beyond excited to have Easton Padden on with us today. Easton Padden is a 4-time Hall of Fame producer. That means he has, on his own pen, produced over 400,000 issue paid. He has a record year of 940,000 issue. Is that correct? There wasn't an extra 0 in there?
That is my all-time record. Yep.
All-time record, 940,000 issue paid from Easton Padden. Tremendous numbers, as well as he is also a 3-time Hall of Fame agency manager. So that means the team that he's brought on and the people that he's coached and spent time with teaching what he knows how to do, which is sell at a high level. I'll teach, hey, why don't you come join me at FFL? I'll teach you how to sell. If it makes sense, stick with me. Let's build a team together. He's done that enough times that now his business on an annual basis does over $10 million of issue paid volume in life insurance. Blend of final expense, mortgage protection, IULs, annuities, etc. And just all around tremendously hardworking guy with discipline that we could all desire to mirror. Heart of gold and just general phenomenal human. So without further ado, please drop some EPs in the chat below to welcome on my man, Easton Padden. How are you doing today, brother?
Well, dude, I'm great now after the intro, and I did send your PayPal over. So I appreciate you hyping me up as we discussed prior and really selling out for me. You're the man. But seriously, great. So great. I don't know if you knew this. So April 1st, 2019 was when I started.
Okay.
And when I came down to the Phoenix event, it was June or July. It was like 138 degrees, so I'll never forget, in a suit. And that was the first time that I'd ever trained in front of other people, like a group like that before. So that was a very nerve-wracking experience that I'll never forget. And I kind of just went up there and was talking about booking appointments. And I'm pretty sure that I could not have got to the presentation faster. It might have been like 4.5 to 5 minutes tops out of the 10. So it's just something that I really appreciate you giving me that kind of exposure early, and just like, hey, if this is a position you want to be in, like, get used to being in front of people. So I'll always be grateful for that, dude. So I don't know if you knew that was my first one ever.
Hey, and I remember it was hot there. We were in a little room. It's like a Holiday Inn by the airport. Now we do events in Vegas at massive casinos. Back then, we had less money. We were getting started as a company and an agency, but hey, we filled the room, man. I think it was standing room only, and you were selling your butt off. And it's like, hey, you got to get up there. You got to share what you're doing. Part of this business is you get good at it, then you teach others. If you want to get good at it, not teach others, that's fine. But you're not going to build a big business. You're gonna sell a lot, which is fine. We appreciate all those who sell and don't teach, but we really like those that sell and teach. And hey, man, look at what you've done, gone off and created. And man, it's been a true joy to see you continue to ascend up the ranks, man. So.
Well, I appreciate you a lot, dude. And a lot of it is just given opportunity and people answering phone calls when I needed help. And I was in that kind of desperate place trying to figure out if I had made the right decision by coming on here. So, and you were one of those guys for me.
Hey, I'm here, and I'm still here for you now. Let's keep going. So so for all those that don't know your full story, and I mean, we don't have to go, back to grade school, but like what did Easton Padden do before here? How were you introduced to the business, and what's those first few years were like? Where'd you find this? I mean, we gotta like the Padden method or something. You gotta brand some get shirts with Padden across the shirt.
Yeah, so great opportunity that I was looking for, and I didn't really know where I was going to land. So I was in corporate rental right before this. So I grew up in Montana. I got my first full-time job when I was 12, and I went to work for another farmer. I was doing bales, hauling irrigation pipe around. So that was my first exposure to working. And, between all the different physical labor jobs, by the time I got out of college, I had thought that maybe not having a job that was going to like put me in a wheelchair by the time I was 52 would be pretty sweet to find. And I found corporate rental car sales with the big green machine. So that was my intro into like corporate business, a little bit of management, some entry level sales type skills. But that was when I got exposed to, I kind of found out that I like that interaction, that psychological interaction with like, hey, they came in for something and this is something that could potentially help. And I like that exchange where it was a true sale, even though it was kind of fear selling. It was still the first time I got to sell something face to face with somebody, and I really enjoyed it. And then over time, I started to do okay there. And, eventually you get kind of trapped with how far can I go and how long is it going to take me to get there? The guys that were really successful at the company, because it's not like it's a, $25 billion company. So it's not like you can't go anywhere, big organization. But I didn't want to wait that 15 to 20 years to get into this potential 7-figure bracket mark. And, passed on, I got passed on some interviews that I'd done and didn't catch the promotions. And that's when I started looking for high level commission sales jobs. And I literally went to Indeed and ZipRecruiter and I just sorted by who was advertising for the highest pay right out of the gate. And this was one of the top like 4 companies on there. So it was 3 medical sales companies in FFL. And I was like, I don't know anything about medical sales or whatever insurance is. Didn't really get it. And I applied and I interviewed January of 2018 and I passed my test March of 2019.
Oh,
So I was the agent that said I'm about to for 15 months. And thankfully, Grady, nobody was really mean to me or was negative about me taking so long. They just were like, whatever, you'll get it done when you get it done kind of thing. So thankfully they weren't rude because I never would have ended up working here. I would have been like, well, those guys aren't very nice. So 15 months later, dude, I got my license and that's when this mess of a journey of me trying to learn how to sell insurance started. And I had this rough, dude, 10-week span where I didn't know how to sell anything. I didn't really know what I was doing. I thought maybe I'd made a mistake finding this. I was so quick and sloppy. I wasn't empathetic to clients. I was just running, 38 to 44 appointments every single week for 10 weeks. I think actually my first 40 appointment week was technically my second week. But I had a really good schedule. I couldn't sell anything because I didn't care about anybody. And I was rushing all these appointments. And that's when they started turning off the credit cards, which is how I was funding my leads. Because here's a huge surprise, like everybody that pretty much starts here, homeless broke like everyone. It's the same story pretty much everywhere you look. There's a few exceptions, but I'd never made any money and I certainly didn't have any. So I was a credit card roulette guy where I spent it until they turned it off. And then I turned the second one on, went to a gas station, they shut that one off. So I turned on my third one and I had $200 left on that card when that like light bulb moment happened for me. And I was able to go out and, I did like 7,500 on a Tuesday and 7,500 on a Wednesday. And a whole bunch of that came in on Friday and then Monday, Tuesday. And it like cleared all the credit cards out. And I had this big reset moment. And that is when the course of my life truly started to really change quickly.
wow, dude, that is powerful. What for coaching moment, do you know what you were doing those first couple weeks that you got 38 to 40 appointments booked, which is way legit from an elite producer's perspective. That's what you want to be at if you want to sell the big numbers. Why? Because it just gives you more bats. They're not all going to show. They're not all going to be there. They're not all going to say yes, but you got your chances. You got your 25% are basically laydowns. But even those, it seemed like you were struggling through. So what were you doing in the beginning that just wasn't clicking?
It was a kind of a combination of a few big problems. So, I was so focused on how this job could benefit me early. I didn't know how to really like slow down and be empathetic to clients or take enough time to ask like why it was important to them. And I had this I heard a training, weird, my car was the Rolling University stuff. I had listened to a training that Zach was on talking about if everybody would just spend 10 minutes understanding why clients would, you know, purchase insurance, everybody would sell a lot more. And I obviously thought he was literal. So I started setting a 10-minute phone timer in all of my appointments. And I would not move on from that why section of the appointment until that timer went off. And obviously the first time, dude, I ran out of questions in 3 minutes, and then I just kept re-asking them until the timer went off, which is, it was really embarrassing, uncomfortable for everybody thing. But that was initially, like, I came in here so selfishly focused on getting paid. I had zero concern for clients, you know, and it is what it is. It wasn't that I intentionally didn't care about them, but like I needed to take care of me also. So that is where I had this big disconnect from, these are like, what if this was your parents? Like, how would you talk to them kind of moment? And
Yeah.
so that was a huge fix that I did, is slowing down in the beginning, you know, having that structure piece to follow. So the schedule thing was kind of the one thing I did really well early. Was I was always good about having a lot of appointments. And then it became, what about actual appointments versus like stuff that you wrote down on the calendar to make yourself feel better? 44 appointments. I sat with 4 of them for the week. That's probably, no way all of those were real. So setting real appointments, getting actual confirmation, you know, and then pretty soon the fill rate went up, and then I didn't have any structure. And I think this is what I really want to focus with your team to start, Grady,
Sure.
is like the actual process to sell, because these are the things that I had kind of combined that all came together. And if I could go back and someone just wrote these like bullet points down for me, it would give me some semblance of, hey, as long as you do these 4 things, they don't have to be perfect, but if you just don't miss these 4, then the odds of you closing is going to significantly go up, because at least you have these 4 little bullet points down. So mine were intro, why, structure, and then your close. So the introduction is, especially with the telesales game, right? It's all credibility stuff. And I did the same thing with in-home. Like, I would bring my hard copy license in every state that I was working in. I would bring the license to the appointments to build that credibility. Like, hey, I'm not a stranger. This means I passed my state and federal background check, which is the same stuff that we do now over the phone. Hey, before we get carried away, Grady, I'm going to send you a text and an email really quick, and it's going to show you a hard copy of my state ID. So it'll show them that I am licensed in your state to do this business, do this transaction. So that initial part I did add to my in-homes, where, hey, I have my license with me all the time. At least I have some baseline of credibility, even if I couldn't explain it as well as maybe Grady could at the time. I just needed them to know that I'm licensed and I'm allowed to do this. That second piece, that 10-minute timer, that why section of your appointments, you have to understand, why do they want to purchase? And you can get into deeper and deeper levels of that why portion after you get an initial direction to go. So initially, I'm just wanting to figure out, hey, Grady, if you go tomorrow, who's in charge? Okay, it's your wife. Obviously, if the wife is the beneficiary, they need to be on the phone or in the room. Now, with virtual, how do you get around that? You don't get around it. You do your entire process, and then when you get to showing like prices and numbers, you just go, okay, awesome. This is going to give me a couple hours to do a little shopping to make sure I handpick the right policy for you guys. What time did you say your wife's going to be home? And I'm going to push them off of giving them quotes so that I can wait to reopen that with their spouse present. Because I don't want to just start giving out numbers, because if he goes, all right, let me relay this to the wife, all he's going to go is, hey, I found insurance for $90. He's like, okay, well, don't buy that, please, because he wasn't there for why it's important and what they need it for. So I want to push that off, and then when she gets back on the phone, I will reopen a little bit boldly. Okay, Mary, just to give a quick run through, Brady mentioned if he's dead tomorrow, you're going to have a really hard time figuring out where to live, feed the kids, pay the bills, etc. So this is what we're looking for this for. And I'll just kind of like bluntly say it to the point, so she's like, wow, okay, well, this makes sense why we're looking for this stuff. So I want to wait to hold on to that as long as I can until we have all parties present. If it is a kid, which is another really common scenario we run into, awesome. Tell me about the kid. Are they married? Where do they live? What do they do for work? Do you have grandkids? And I want this information because if Tom is a part-time manager at Walgreens or a full-time manager at Walgreens, would you say it's relatively hard for him to come up with 15, 20, or 30 grand overnight just for like the basics, not counting everything else? Yes. Awesome. Okay, makes sense why you guys are looking for this. But those initial extra digging questions are really important if the beneficiary does not live in that home. So that why section, tell me about that person. What's the situation look like? Have you guys looked for this before? This is big stuff that you're looking for early. Yes, we have looked for this before. Okay, what was your biggest holdback or what prevented you? Because obviously this is important. So what prevented you guys from going this direction prior? And then you can get to the root of why they haven't bought yet if they've been shopping. So that is your why phase. I need to understand why it's important to the client. The structure piece, dude, this was a really, really hard one because if you were like, hey, if I go, I want to make sure my wife's good in the home, or I want to make sure my kid can pay for my funeral. I'm like, okay, awesome. So give me 2 seconds. All right, this looks like Eagle is $63 a month. How's that sound? And now you're through the entire appointment, but you had no structural idea. You didn't tell them what the process is to get this solution in place to solve the problem they just told you. So your structure phase is always, hey, my job is super easy. I underwrite for like 30, 40, 50 some companies. There's a whole bunch of them. They're all state regulated, which to you, that just means they're basically like universally priced. So what I do is I ask you, they give me this cool little suitability form, which is how I figure out what you qualify for. I'm going to ask age, income, house, health, current insurance. Once you give me that info, I'm just going to shop around, and whoever gives you the most for the least, I'm going to assign you that insurance company. You're going to custom design your own policy. And then once you have built it how you want, where it's enough for your kids and affordable for you, all I do is take your info and shoot it to the insurance company, make sure you get the green light. Does that sound easy enough? And that structure phase is what I was really pushing through like crazy. So they would give me this huge why, and I never let them know like what the process is to get this in place or how it works or what I do or what my role is. I wanted to give, sales is basically giving the illusion of control to the client in what we do. Like I'm telling them, you pick the company, you design your own policy. It's this giant, not in a disrespectful way, but like facade of you get to do it all, when really that's just, they're going to assist me in finding a good solution for them that they can afford, but I get to do everything else on their behalf. Once they select what they want, dude, all I do is take your info and I hand it to the insurance company asking if they'll approve you. Does that sound easy enough? And that was my big structure piece that I couldn't quite get down early, and just like, here's what we're going to do today. And it can be that simple. Like, hey, I just shop around, find a company, you pick a price, I send it in. Like it can be that short if you're brand new trying to figure out how to go through this big, long verbiage statement. If you just make it short and sweet, I'm just going to take your info, shop around, find a company, you pick a price, I send you in. How does that sound? Easy enough? Get confirmation. That was that big structure piece. So now the only thing left to do is like do their actual suitability and then make sure that they can afford it. Because the entire appointment up to this point has been closed. They want to shop around. They have a reason, why they need to buy. Your suitability form, that age, income, house, health, current insurance piece, that is really just you figuring out like, hey, what company can I pair them with? And then what can they afford to purchase? And that is when, if it's a husband and wife situation, Grady, that is where you get good at selling. Everyone wants to know, how do I sell bigger premiums? Your bigger premiums come from being thorough in your suitability form to figure out, what do you guys make? Because if you go, okay, you make $5,000 and you move on, versus if I go, okay, so $5,000 a month, Grady, that's 60 a year. So you're 45. By the time you're 55, your wife is going to be out $600,000. I can see why this is important to you. That is much more impactful than, hey, I'm going to lose $5,000. So it's just one extra step of explanation of the numbers. Just imagine when you're 65. Now we're out $1.2 million in net income. It makes sense why the $100,000 that you have at work is not enough. I'm always looking to find what they have, assign it, create value, explain bigger picture stuff. That is what that suitability form can really be used for, is figuring out income loss, major bills. I do soft budget. I'm not interested in nitpicking every minute Netflix account they have, or like all the small little optional things. I want big stuff: mortgage, cars, six-figure debts, non-negotiables. I want all of that information so that I can truly craft something that is enough insurance for them. And I know we can fit it in their budget because I have their staple bills and their income. So that really helps you do this custom design piece with them where like, hey, you're going to build it, which means I'm going to help you build it based on what you can actually afford. And then from there, dude, the whole thing is closed. Now you're just putting out prices that are affordable for them and asking them which one do they want to try to get approved for first. And that is that intro Y structure close. That is what I put all together after that 10-week period of time. And that's when my stuff, really started to change month to month.
Wow. Easton, sales is giving the illusion of control. Sales is giving the illusion of control. We're going to design this together. I see this information. You get to pick what you want. It's brilliant. It's so simple. I mean, and again, to put the amount they're going to lose. Now, granted, you could go, you're going to lose $5,000 a month. That's 60,000 a year. But then to go the next level and say that's $600,000 a year by 10 years. If God forbid Jim didn't come home yesterday, what would you be doing today? You're putting these factual realities in right in front of them. So they have to decide, is this something I want to deal with right now? Which they definitely want to deal with right now because they don't want to have this conversation again. You make it painful enough to bring it to light to go, let's just get this resolved. This guy, he's sharp, he's well spoken, he's confident, he's going to get it resolved, and he's got a license. I love it, Easton. So this is what you're teaching new people? Is this what you still actively producing? Is this your part of your IOL presentation? All the above?
Yeah, it doesn't matter to me what, and I think the IULs are actually less of a sale, like that's what all the top guys are saying that sell a lot of those is like, hey, they kind of sell themselves. We're just doing suitability. And then how do you want to fund your own policy? So that really is like, there's not a lot. Now you can go into the weeds on explaining what the product does in depth. And if you're selling these, you really should know what the product is, how it functions, be able to answer these higher level questions that you might get. But really, the baseline IUL sale is like, how do you want to fund your own retirement plan, as a supplement? And this intro Y structure close stuff, that is, to me, it's been very universal with any lead type that I've ever ran since I kind of learned those bullet points. If I carry those staples with me in all of my appointments, I know that I've got a really good chance if I get my yes confirmations over and over and over, I understand why they need to purchase, the consequence without it, what they have now, how this can benefit them, make sure it squeezes into the budget, non-negotiable, year-round, birthdays, holidays, emergencies. If I can cover those bases every single appointment, the odds of them saying no go down over like down and down and down and down, the more that you have that consistency in those questions. And what do they say? The one who asks the most questions wins. It's less about winning. And this was the biggest distraction is because this is such a high paying commission job, you get hyper focused on if they say yes to this number, here's what I get, instead of going, if I can provide as much value as humanly possible to their exact situation, the money will fix itself over time. And that was like an enormous distraction is I saw it, I saw the comp plan, someone explaining to me how we get paid, and I just went rich. That was like my brain just did that on because I was like, I'm so poor. This seems like rich people stuff. I'm in, and that distraction was almost what put me out of business. So when you guys are going through this, you're asking these why questions because if it was your parents and it's not you doing this job, how would you want someone to come into your home, get on Zoom or call your family and go through this thoroughly so that if my dad goes and I'm 10, my mom is a single mom with 3 kids and no job, that's a huge problem for me, like for us as a family. So if that was my situation and I'm talking to these people who have a similar situation, like I would want to slow down because I would want someone else to slow down enough to go, man, this is a really serious problem. Here's how I think we can help. What do you think of these options based on what you guys would like to have? And I think that's a big staple of what we do, Grady, is that empathetic compassion. Like, this is our family that we're talking to. How would you do the job differently? And that was hard at first.
I hear you. So, okay. So intro Y structure close. We got intro. Intro is assessing who you are, whether you're using like a verified producer type page, whether you're texting it to them. picture of you, picture your license. You're creating some sort of level of trust. They can see you, even if it's just over the phone. Why? 10 minutes of digging in on this structure, age, health, house, current insurance, and part of house is cars and six-figure debts. What are the bigger things they've got? Now, what's close? Like, what is so? You know, we're buttoning it up. What is the Easton Padden close? What does that
So
include?
it, I think a standard rule. So if you're brand new and you're just like, hey, I need a baseline where to go, like 5, 7, and 9%, depending on their, their debt to income ratio a little bit. But like if they make $5,000 a month, if they have normal debt to income bills as a regular family, I'm not going to show them ever something over a $500 mark because that's 10% of their month to month. And that would be on the very high side. Now, the only exception to that rule is if they make $5,000 a month, their house is paid off, they have a car for $250 in insurance and utilities, and they're saving $3,000 a month, different situation. But if they're just, if they have regular people stuff like everybody does, I want to keep it, 5, 7, and 9%. And the virtual adjustment is bottom up selling. One thing that I found was we always used to top down sell, and over the phone you might unintentionally sticker shock somebody and you can't recover from it if you're not in person. So if you're face to face and I can write down 3 options and write down the benefits next to it and then present it to them all at once and walk them down, that's different than me going, hey, do you got a pen and paper? Can you write this out for me? Okay, so your max option of 400 is 539, which, and then if as soon as that comes out of your mouth, in their mind, you don't know if they're like, hey, this is probably going to cost $50. They're out. You lose them immediately. So now I'll go, okay, insurance company recommendation is a baseline, and I'm going to blame the insurance company for why I'm showing low to start. First option that comes back, Grady, it looks like they're going to say about 75. That is going to come in right at 115.79 a month. So 115 bucks and 79 cents a month. And this is the 5. And so I'm going to go 75, 125, 175. I'll jump those gaps just based on, age, health, income. So that is what I'm looking for. Is the bottom one is very easy. I know they can afford it no matter what. It's barely over 100 bucks. They're going to be good to go. And then that middle option is probably where I want them to land. And the top one, I know they can afford, but they really have to care about it to say yes to the top one. So you have to build urgency, financial loss. They have to go, all I care about in this life is making sure that my wife's good when I die or my kids are good. Whatever that situation is, if you can pull that out of them and they're like pouring their heart out into you, they will buy a big policy. And then I'll do a little gut check with them just to make sure, okay, so just so you know how this works, when I send your stuff over, my job is just to get you green lighted for your like base minimum. So if tomorrow is it, your kids are going to be okay. Your spouse is going to be okay. So out of these 3, which one is a non-negotiable piece of cake for you every month that still provides enough value to X person that you want to send your request in to see if they'll give you the green? And that is how I'm going to start every single time. And my hope is that they're like, hey, I really think that I can handle this one that's 529. Brady, you know the worst thing that I could ever hear in my life is when you think you might possibly. So why don't we do this? Let's just make it really easy. You know that the 330 is cake for you guys. It's not hard for you at all. Fair enough. Like you could be hammered on Saturday and make this decision, no questions, and not regret it Sunday. Cool. All right. So let's do 330 to start. And then once you guys get your stuff in the mail, you call me in 2 weeks when it gets in. And then if you guys want to let it settle for 6 months and then do an increase, or you're like, hey, it came out of the bank, we have plenty, the 530 is all good with me, and you want to move it, dude, all you have to do is call me. You have tons of time to make that decision to increase. Does that make sense? And I'm always going to try to get them to go down a tier, especially if I hear I should be able to, I think we can handle it. Those are enormous red flags that sound gentle, but that doesn't sound sturdy. I will explain to them the only insurance policy that matters is the one that's in force on the day that you pass. So if 330 or 115 or $63, whatever one that is locked and loaded for you guys for life, this is the one that we want to make sure, because what we're doing is we're trying to make sure that it's not something you can afford for 6 months, Grady. I need it to be when you're 93 or you're 88 or whatever the type of policy is. If you do go, this one has to be enforced, so it has to be affordable forever. Does that make sense? And I'm trying to do my best to downsell. Increased persistency is increased profitability. It doesn't do any good to look good on the leaderboard and have no money. And transparency, dude, I tried that for a few months because competitive gets a hold of you sometimes. I'm like, ooh, this 120 month stuff is sweet. But what if you just did 80 and your persistency was up 12%? You actually make more and it's less stressful. So persistency, profitability. So figure out what can they afford forever, and then let's lock that in.
That's epic. Insurance company recommendation. My job is just to get you green lighted. I love it. So they pick an option, 330 or 120 a month. What's the tie down close? They don't talk to any other agents. They're, you're their agent for life, X, Y, and Z, follow up, thank you, brownies, flowers, anything like that. What do you do to completely wrap it up?
Hey, Grady, you know how this works? Have you bought like life insurance before, which hopefully we've covered prior? Or like, hey, remember when you got your car insurance, or remember when you went to the dealership and got your ride? Okay, so same stuff. So I'm going to need all the identical info that they do when you're at the car dealership, minus the credit check, by the way. So good thing for us is, praise the Lord, we don't have to get that from you, so we don't hammer your credit. But all the same stuff: your driver's license, birthday, address, social, bank you're going to use to pay, same deal. I'm going to grab that from you and send it to the insurance company on your behalf to get the green. Sound good? Get the confirmation that we're about to do the app. And I would typically try to feed that to them before we do the prices, by the way. If you get approved, today's the 28th. So your first one, Grady, if they give you a green light offer, typically will take anywhere from 24 hours to 5 days, depending on the company and the underwriting, to get you hot. And then it'll just repeat on the 28th of every single month after that. So your first one might be a couple of days behind, but then it's just going to be 28th on repeat until you decide to change it. If you do want to wiggle it a little bit, just holler. I can help you with all that stuff, but just plan on the 28th of every month. Now, Grady, just so you know, this is something I've done with 3, 4, 5,000 people now. So it's something we do very regularly. Anyone that's going to call you after me, their entire job is to upsell you into something that's not affordable because they're looking for a paycheck. That's not because they care about you. Does that make sense? So if you get any calls about, I'm your manager, I'm just with the regional director of underwriting, like, dude, none of that's true. I'm the guy that you're with for the rest of your life. If you need me, I will always call you in 24 hours. You can even test me tomorrow. Sound good? And that's kind of like my final close down.
That's awesome. Now, thank you cards, emails, texts, anything like any tangibles?
I would recommend doing a 2-week, like whatever your calendar system is, do a 14 business day follow-up. So sometimes that could be out 3 weeks, but don't miss your 3-week one. Hey, I just wanted to call and make sure you got your hard copy out in the mail. That phone call could change a lot of your persistency stuff over time. And it's so easy to do. It takes 3 seconds to give them a phone call, leave them a voicemail. Hey, it's your guy, Easton. I just wanted to make sure that you did get that big packet with a giant A on it. It's big and blue. You got that in the mail? Okay, awesome. If not, hey, let me call them really quick and see if we can figure out where it's at in the mail or get you an express one shipped. And then something I picked up from convention is I started setting a 5 and 11 month reminder for all the clients, because they said that statistically, when clients cancel, it's normally month 5 and month 11. So now I've got my 3-week, 5-month, and 11-month follow-ups to really help keep my stuff on the books, which eventually you guys will, hopefully you get to a point where you can have a staff member do that, because it's not technically an income producing activity. I guess, well, it's a coin toss on how you look at it, but
I'm keeping
hopefully
it.
you can get to hopefully you can, it's preservation of your business. So it helps with your persistency. So technically it's income, but if you can get to a point where you can have someone do your 5 and 11, then you're just focused on doing those 3 weeks. Like have, one morning on Thursday where you're like, hey, this is my day where I'm going to call my last 3 weeks of clients. Just make sure they got their stuff.
That's awesome. It's a quick, hey, is Easton reaching out, making sure you're happy? What do you have staff say, or what would you say on your 5 and 11 months? Checking in?
Just like, yeah, hey, I'm calling on behalf of Easton. He was the guy that helped you with your ex company policy. We just wanted to make sure that you still have your paperwork somewhere secured, and I will have them check the beneficiary of that policy. Like, cool. Hey, John, it's Lynn's calling on behalf of Easton Padden's office. He's the guy that hooks you up with the Mutual of Omaha policy. It looks like this is the one that you took out to make sure Susan was all good. It looks like it's maybe funeral based, and I'll have some like kind of notation in there for them. Now, mind you, Grady, this is new to me. It's not something
Love
I've
it,
done
though.
prior,
It's
so
so good. It's
we're
so
experimenting. But this is what our plan is going to be: is to just have them do that follow up with the beneficiary's name, which I also stole from someone at convention. When you're trying to save a policy, same thing on your 5 and 11 month. So have them call, confirm beneficiary. Hey, just wanted to check in. That 3-week appointment, by the way, that check-in, if you forgot to do referrals on your actual initial appointment with them, that 3-week mark is a great time to ask for referrals in case you didn't remember to do it on your initial appointment with those guys.
could be your legacy safeguard follow-up.
Dude, you got it. That now that we have that thing, that is going to be a massive game changer for, I think, persistency and referral business. I'm pretty excited about that thing.
Another thing too, on your 5 and 11 months, it's great. I mean, those are all the points are spot on it. And then it's also a perfect time to go, has anything changed in your life? Would you like to set up an appointment with Easton to review your policy? Is there any new coverage you might need to get? You know, I mean, it could be, I mean, it's just great business etiquette. Buyers are buyers, right? Buyers like to buy, and and repeat buyers are the best buyers because there's no new lead cost. So Easton, this is solid, bro.